Hello and welcome to my channel. My name's Cheyenne and today I am coming at you with a vet school advice video. So today I thought that I would do kind of like a first year vet school reflection and advice video. Summer's almost over and I know there's going to be a fresh crowd of first year vet students, and so I thought I would just share my experience and some tips and just advice that I have to share with you. I have notes on my phone, so if I have to look down a little bit, please forgive me. But yeah, let's go ahead and just get started. So basically, I've broken down my advice and I guess tips into three main categories. So they are academics, social, and mental health. And so some of the tips and things kind of overlap, but those are the three general categories. So first up, let's start with academics because, we had a very rigorous academic journey to get into vet school, and I'm sure that's what is at the forefront of a lot of people's minds and what a lot of people might be worried about. So let's kind of just dive right into it. So when it comes to academics, I would say the biggest thing, and this is something that I was told too when I was coming into vet school, is that the material itself is honestly not that bad. And that might sound kind of silly, but it's really just the sheer amount of material that you have to learn and the time constraints in which you have to learn it. And so you just have to think about all of the prereqs you had to take in order to get into vet school. They were hard classes, OChem, biochemistry, whatever else, all those things. Physics, I hated physics. But yeah, those classes were hard, but you passed them and your grades were good enough to get into vet school. So it's not the content of the classes itself, I would say, that is difficult. I mean, it depends. There are some things that are more difficult for different people and some concepts that I struggle to grasp. But generally, I would say it's more about how quickly you learn the material. I'm not really familiar with how the testing schedule is at other vet schools, other universities, but at my school for first year, we took a test basically every single week. So there were like a couple weeks that we didn't have an exam, like the first week of school, and I think when we finished like a round of exams, we would have a break before our next round. And so what I mean by that is that we had one exam for every class every week, if that makes sense. So if I think first week was physics, then after that it was microanatomy, then gross anatomy, and then we might have had a break. I can't remember, but basically it cycles like that throughout the weeks of the year until you get to finals week. And then during finals week, you take all of your final exams, obviously, in 1 week. So yeah, I would say overall I felt like it was manageable, but it is a lot, and it's definitely something you have to learn to adjust to. And speaking of adjusting, I think really trying to figure out your learning style is really important when you enter vet school. Quite frankly, I still don't really know my learning style. I've tried a couple of different things. I've experimented since getting into vet school, and I found that there are some things that are more helpful, some things that are not. For example, first semester, I would just go home and rewrite all my notes and try and make them more condensed. And that kind of helped for a little bit, but then it wasn't the best method. So I would experiment. I started making a lot of Quizlets, and I found that was really helpful. But then I started to find that I was also making too many Quizlets that were too detailed and had too many terms. So yeah, still trying to find the right balance, but I would say if you're not someone who knows how they learn best, definitely try to experiment with that and figure out what works best for you. Okay, so another tip I have is to go to the hospital as much as you can. So basically, on test days, our test days for semester and second semester, our test days were on Fridays during first year. And so on Fridays, we also only had 1 or 2 classes after our exam block. So during that time between finishing the exam and starting class, myself and some other classmates would go down to the hospital practically every Friday. And so we would walk around, try and find some surgeries to watch, or, practice doing dental blocks is one thing that I got to do. Sometimes we would go to the donor cat ward and play with cats. And so I think really just getting down into the hospital and making yourself familiar with the staff down there, the doctors down there, and kind of the layout of the hospital is going to be really helpful, not just for gaining more hands-on experience, but also for fourth year when you're doing clinical rotations. Okay, and this is going to sound kind of random, but I know a lot of people struggle with gross anatomy. Personally, I really loved gross anatomy. It was very hard and there is a lot to learn, but one of my biggest tips for that class specifically is to go in after class and study your specimen. So we had quizzes in there, I think every week, and then we would also have lab practicals and stuff. And so basically they would pin a certain part of the specimen during those exams, and you would walk around look at it, and then write what you think it is. And so the best way really to prepare for that is to, you know, familiarize yourself with the specimen. There are a lot of great online resources. I know CSU has a virtual canine anatomy that is fantastic. I used that a lot throughout my first semester when we were doing anatomy of the dog, and it was very helpful. I think it was only like $30, so I would definitely recommend investing in that. I think that was a great tool. But ultimately, getting into the gross anatomy lab, pulling out your specimen, and, you know, reviewing things, I think is the best way to learn. Okay, so that kind of wraps up my general input on academics, I guess. I can go into a more detailed video if you guys have specific questions that you'd like to ask, but for now I am going to move on to my next category, which is social life. And so, you know, a lot of people probably think that you can't have one, and I would strongly disagree with that. Time management is key when it comes to vet school. So it is possible to have a social life, I would say, before you really get into the rigors of, you know, having exams every week, quizzes, whatever. Try and make yourself a schedule. You know, when you get home, I'm gonna stay for this long. I'm gonna work out at this time. I'm gonna eat dinner at this time. Some people don't really like to have their life scheduled like that. Personally, I didn't really do that too much, but I think it would have been helpful to carve out time to do other things, because, you know, I didn't work out as much once I started vet school because I felt like I never had time because I was studying every day, which does bring me back to academics. You will be studying a lot. Just hear that, take that in, and just know that that is your life, but that's okay. And so I guess this also falls into social life. You can find a balance. Yes, you'll be studying probably every day. I would recommend studying every day in order to keep up with all of the material, but it is possible to find a balance. You know, when you finish your first block of exams, go out with some friends, have a drink, chill out, you know, take time off. Every weekend, you know, give yourself like one day to just like not think about school and just relax and hang out, play with your dog, take your dog on a walk. Speaking of dogs, yes, you can have pets in vet school. And, you know, okay, that probably varies by person. Personally, for me, it's easier because it's not just me living in this house. So, you know, that might be helpful if you have roommates or whatever. But I do think it is very manageable to have a dog. We have an hour lunch break in our daily schedule, so you can come home, you can eat, you can let your dog out, you can take them for a walk before you go to class and after. I do think it's manageable. And, you know, it doesn't have to be a dog. It could be a cat. It could be a gecko or a snake, corn snake. One of my friends has one of those. Whatever it is, if you want to have pets, I think that you can make it work. So another thing, and something that I wish I had done a more effective job at, is reaching out to people and getting to know people, especially during orientation week and, you know, when you're first starting classes. It is very hard for some people, like me. I'm an introvert, and so it was really hard for me to put myself out there. And honestly, I didn't do a very good job, but thankfully I was able to find a good group of friends throughout the semester, and I have people that I can hang out with outside of class and all that jazz. But, you know, maybe make your life a little bit easier and try to reach out to people earlier on, because I will say it becomes a little more intimidating and a little bit harder to make new friends. I felt personally, after all of everyone's friend groups are established. With that being said, if you are someone who is outgoing and who's established their friend group, be cool, be nice to other people, be willing to reach out to others, or, you know, just be open-minded is, I guess, basically what I have to say about that. Okay, so this point kind of falls, I guess, somewhere between academics and just vet school and also social, and that is clubs. I think clubs are an awesome way to get more hands-on experience, and it's a great way to kind of dip your toe in the water when it comes to other fields. So I know at my school there's so many clubs. There's a Shelter Med Club, which I'm a part of. There's Exotics Club, there's Avian, there's Bovine. I think there's like an emergency calving team that you can join. So yeah, there's a lot of different clubs out there for a wide array of interests, and I would say if your school does like club fairs at the beginning of the year, definitely go and check it out and see what you might be interested in, and, you know, just sign up for a couple things. You don't have to, at least at my school, they made it very clear that you don't have to go to every single meeting or event or whatever. They were really understanding about, hey, we're all really busy vet students, let's try and be cool and just, you know, be flexible with people. And so if you're worried about the time commitment, I would say at least give it a try. Maybe just sign up for one club if that's all you feel like you can commit to, and as you get more comfortable, be willing to sign up for other things as well. Clubs are also a really great way to meet people both in your class and outside of your class, because it is a mixture of students from all years, except for maybe fourth years, because let's be real, fourth years are very busy. But yeah, and you get a lot of free food, you get to learn really cool stuff, depending on what kind of presentation it is. If it's like a wet lab or something, you can get like hands-on and touch some birds or something. So, definitely give it a try. And it's also a really great way to get leadership experience as well. So for what it's worth, I think clubs are awesome. Okay, so that brings me to my last category, which is mental health. And I feel like this is a really important topic to touch on, especially in this time in our field. Honestly, our profession is kind of in a crisis. Veterinarians are suffering from compassion fatigue and just overexhaustion, and just there's a real serious mental health issue in this profession. And it stems from an array of things, from maybe not feeling like you don't have the time to have a life outside of work. Veterinarians sometimes work really crazy hours, especially depending on what your specialty is. The income to debt ratio is insane. So debt becomes another big thing that weighs on a lot of people's minds, and it is a really big commitment and something you have to be prepared for. There are options, there's scholarships, there's financial aid, and there are repayment plans that you can look into for when you graduate, but that is a reality of our career. And then, of course, when you get into the field and you're working with people, I don't want to say unfortunately, but the saying, dogs don't walk themselves into clinics, they are attached to people. And sometimes clients can be great, sometimes they can be really hard to deal with because they don't really understand what this job entails. They don't understand how much passion and purpose we put into our work each and every day. And sometimes, a lot of times, they think that we're money hungry and that we only recommend things because they're expensive and so we can put money in our pocket, which if you're someone who's truly passionate about this career, that's not true. So yeah, there are a lot of things that make this career difficult. And that's talking about working in the profession itself. Vet school is difficult as well. Like I said, time management is key, and it can be really easy to get caught up in just studying all the time and being in class and your exams and all that, and just focusing on schoolwork alone. And I think that a part of maintaining your mental health and mental well-being is to diversify your schedule and to not just focus solely on school. School is important, but your mental health comes first and foremost. And so, finding hobbies that you like, that you can go to when you're stressed out with school is important. Finding people that you can confide in, calling your parents or your friends or whoever when you feel like you're about to break down, or just calling them because you just want to talk to them. It's important. And I know that depression is something that a lot of us struggle with, depression, anxiety, and if your school has counselors, which I would be surprised if they didn't. I know my school promoted that a lot throughout orientation and throughout the semester. There are always people there willing to listen to you, to help you out. So, if you need help, if you feel like you're struggling, talk to someone. Send me a message, I don't care. Just know that you're not alone and that there are people who want to help you and who want to see you succeed. And so always just put your mental health first, because that is what's most important. And so another topic, I guess, that kind of falls in that category of mental health and mental well-being is the idea of comparing yourself to others. I know a lot of us that get into vet school and get into this field can be hard on ourselves when it comes to academics. We had to work really hard. We had to be competitive in order to get into vet school. We had to make ourselves the best. You're here now, okay? So it's all good. You're here now. You're good enough. You deserve to be here. And so I think this is when the competition stops and the collaboration starts. Reach out to other people, work with other people, learn from other people, and help your classmates as well. Build each other up. Don't get too caught up in comparing yourself or your grades or whatever to others. You're not always going to be the top student. That's okay. Vet school is filled with a bunch of brilliant, intelligent people. And so if you're 2 points behind someone else, or maybe you bombed an exam or you got a D and you've never done that in your life before, it's okay. This is a really, really tough profession. You're learning a lot, and it's going to take some time to adjust. So if you find yourself struggling with grades, reach out and get help from your professors. But please try not to compare yourself to others. I know that's easier said than done, but really what's important is that you focus on yourself and being the best student that you can be so that you can be the best doctor that you can be. And so I think there is one last topic that I would like to touch on, and that is imposter syndrome, something that I'm sure a lot of us are very familiar with. And you know, I don't know if I thought that I would stop feeling that way when I graduated undergrad and got into vet school, but I still struggle with it sometimes. And I feel like when it comes to vet school, a big part of that feeling, you know, feeling like you don't really know what you're doing or like you don't belong there is, I think a lot of that can be attributed to the speed at which we learn new material. It's hard when you are just thrown so much and you're supposed to learn all of this, and even if you do well on your exams, you might feel like you don't really know it. That was something that I struggled with. I did well on my exams and I had good grades, and yet when a topic would come up later, I would be like, I don't know if I remember this. I felt like I couldn't remember it fast enough, or if I got the answer wrong, I would just feel like, what am I even doing here? Yeah, sure, I aced an exam, but what good is that if I can't recall that information later? And so that's something that I struggled with a lot, something that I still kind of struggle with, honestly. But, you know, I kind of had to tell myself, hey, you're a first year. You can't know everything. You're not supposed to know everything. Take in as much as you can. And for the places where you feel like there are gaps in your knowledge, go back and try and refresh that knowledge, you know? If there's something you're confused about or that you're struggling to remember, ask a classmate, ask a friend, ask a teacher. Try and reach out and get that help, and don't just get down on yourself because you feel like you're not perfect. Nobody's perfect, and that's okay. I know personally I plan to spend a lot of time this summer reviewing key concepts and trying to refresh before my next semester. So if that's something that'll help you, definitely go for it. And so with that being said, I think that that is kind of all I had to share in this particular video. Honestly thought this was gonna be a bit longer, but I don't know, I talk fast I guess, and it's all I could think of at this current moment. I'm sure there are other things I'll think of later, and I'm sure a lot of you guys will have questions as well. So if you do, please feel free to drop your question or comment down below, and maybe I can do like a Q&A or something. Anything I can do to help and give advice, I would love to do. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful, and yeah, again, guys, you're in for a treat. It's gonna be hard, but vet school is one of the best things I've ever experienced, so I know you're gonna do great. And yeah, that's all I have for today. Have a good one. Bye.